Well, Mike, it's official. We are live on May the 7th, 2021. Sandy, we're a little bit early. We're at 9:56, so hopefully you can jump on here in a second. Uh, Mike and Donnie talking about
Playing
mainly
crap.
irrelevant, mainly irrelevant stuff. Mandy hates it when I do my. Is that bad?
What?
My wrinkles on my forehead.
Wrinkles in your forehead. Well, I mean, you're old, so you're gonna have
Okay,
wrinkles, bro.
good
See,
point.
I got them. I got them. I
Enough
mean,
of
I don't have as many as you do, but I got a lot more forehead too. So
Yeah, you do. You go all the way back. So
yeah.
today we got a pretty big show. The main topic, which we'll get to in a second, I think is going to be a hot topic for sure. A lot of people are talking about it. So we're going to start out and just kind of tell you, Mike and myself were down in Scottsdale this past week for a top producer event. We were down there schmoozing it up with all the other big wigs, people much bigger than us, obviously, smarter.
Yep.
Better looking, the whole deal. But we did take our wives and kind of show them a good time, and we'll talk a little bit about that. At the end, what did we decide we were talking about at the end?
Well, are you going to get to the middle part in a second? If we get to it, we might talk a little bit about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies because
Yeah.
it's a big deal right now. So, and I happen to be, not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I happen to be somewhat well versed in the topic because I
Yeah.
have a lot of interest in it. So, I'll give you my simple-minded approach to it.
So this is another example where Mike loves something and he makes me talk about it, right? Like aliens. It's the
That's
kind of thing. I don't know anything about Bitcoin. I don't understand it. Very similar to aliens, right? But the big topic today. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I'll say you won't look at the stuff I keep sending you about aliens. You won't even watch it. I mean, Tucker Carlson on Fox News, like your boy, he had a guy on there from the British government and the U.S. government talking about it, and you still are like, it's bull. I don't know.
It's bull. All right, we're not talking about aliens today, Mike. Okay. And by the way, tell us if y'all want us to talk about aliens. Just tell us, okay? I think it's irrelevant and no good. But the big topic today is the housing bubble, right? Are we in a housing bubble? A lot of us, better yet, I should say, a lot of us lived through the mess of 08, 9, 10, 11, in that range. Times were really good in 06, 7, and 8. And then it happened, right? The big one. So everybody's wondering, are we going to deal with that same thing again? By the way, and we'll mention this a couple of times when we're talking about it, the movie Big Short really dumbs it down and really explains what happened. It's a great rendition of what actually went on. It wasn't just like it just happened for the heck of it. There was a lot of things leading up to it. So let's tell a little bit. Mike, what was your take on let's just start with Scottsdale as a whole?
So I've never been to Arizona, so it's my first time to go. I will say this, like I know we talked a little bit about this there. I'm kind of more of if I'm on vacation, I got two types of vacations, right? I go on we're going to do some stuff and go see some things, and we're going to experience this area because we've never been here before, and we don't know when we're coming back. So, so we're scheduled, we got stuff to do. So I got that vacation, and then I got the vacation where I'm just going to sit on my butt and not do a thing. Right. But there were two very distinct vacations that we go on. So like I went to Hawaii recently. We did a bunch of stuff. We rode horses. We went to volcanoes.
Right.
We did all kinds of stuff. Scottsdale to me is a place, or anywhere in Arizona, where if you're going just to chill. Like you're just going to hang out because it's very resort oriented. Now I know you and I have talked we've talked about golf before, and I know you love golf and I play golf. I will, but it's not like my passion. So I can certainly see going to Arizona to play golf because they have a lot of wonderful golf courses, and there's a lot. That's just not necessarily my bag. I'm down to do it, but it's just not like I'm seeking it out. But for Scottsdale, because of the resort style, because they have so many resorts out there, when you go there, you're going to hang out at the resort, you're going to lay by the pool, you're going to relax, and that's exactly what we did. It was great. I thought the weather was awesome. Obviously it's the dry heat versus here in Texas. We got the humidity and stuff. So which, just wrecks my hair, so I got to be careful.
Messes everything up.
Right. So for that reason, I mean, I had a great time. It was a chill out vacation. I love being around people that are smarter than me and know more stuff about doing loans than I could ever imagine. So you get to learn a lot from your peers and all that kind of stuff. So I enjoyed that. And just getting to chill out and shoot the, you know what, and that was great.
It was fun for sure. And, the last night they had a person come in, talked a little bit about our year and how it went and those kind of things, kind of recognize some people and whatnot.
A person that wasn't that our CEO? That was
yes.
Our CEO. Okay,
yes.
You made it sound like it was some random person just showed up to do some stuff. So
no, sorry, I kind of went for. I was going to say, and we had a gentleman come and play music, right?
Oh yeah.
And he played a nice show. He's kind of he's got a good voice, but he uses humor in his music. I mean, it's really good. What's his name again?
I was about to say, do you remember his name?
No, but you do.
Steve will be very upset with you. His name is Bob Schneider.
Bob Schneider, super great, super funny. And then at the end, we had a big fireworks show. If you're friends with any of us on Facebook or Insta or Snapchat, you probably saw a little bit of that. But ultimately, it was a good time for sure. So I was glad to go. It was dry heat. I was dropping drops in my eyes, my laser eyes now. I was doing all the things that I could to stay moist in my eyes and nose and orifices.
You got to. You were trying to stay moist in orifices. Okay, that's fine. Yep. I get it.
We just lost 2 people.
That's right. Right. We'll just skip on past that. But you got a fair amount of quirks. So when we're out and about at these places, you got some things we got to make sure Donnie's taken care of. So I'm glad that you had a smooth trip, for the most part. I'm sure there was a few other little incidents.
No doubt.
But other than that, everything went really well. We all had a good time. And it was great seeing everybody from our company in one spot, or, a good majority of them. We missed a lot, obviously the people that make the engine go, which is a lot of our ops people. We love having trips with them as well, but it was definitely good to get out there with everybody and enjoy a little mini vacation and hang out, and so it was fun, man. I really liked it.
It was good for sure. All right, so now we're going to change gears. We're going to our hot topic of the day. We're going to talk about the housing bubble. Now, if you know anything about the mortgage business, real estate market, or whatnot, you know that there was a disaster, right? It was the beginning of the Great Recession. By the way, 20 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, it's going to be in the history books, right up there, right behind probably 9/11. It'll probably be right behind that, the Great Recession. And ultimately, Mike, you can kind of add to what happened at that time, but there's some very, very distinct differences that I think one could argue that this is not going to be a bubble that bursts, right? A bubble is a bubble, right? It's getting better. It's growing at 10, 12, 14% per year, which is through the roof. But are we in a housing bubble, Mike? What's your thoughts on it?
Well, no, for a lot of reasons. And unfortunately, you and I both know, because we have these conversations over and over and over again every single day when we're talking to borrowers. And I mean, there's 100 different ways we can go on this, but ultimately, the bubble that occurred in 6, 7, and 8 was all based off of bad loans, right? And speculating on loans. So we were writing loans for people that should not have been getting loans, or maybe they shouldn't have not been getting loans, but possibly shouldn't have been buying $500,000 houses. Maybe they needed to buy a $200,000 house.
Right. And right? A little pause, a little caveat to that. I mean, I make the joke. We were literally, it was just part of the business.
Right. I wasn't in the business at that time, by the way.
Checking your pulse.
Yep.
Getting a copy of your driver's license, stating your income, stating your assets, closed.
Right.
Literally. Now, we were making bad loans, a lot of them, adjustable rate mortgages.
Now, let me ask you a question. When's the last time you felt like you made a bad loan?
I mean, I can remember a couple of times in those, and it's one of those things as a loan officer, if the underwriting's approving it and the guidelines are what they are, I mean, what do you do? I mean, hey.
It's a result of the system for sure. No,
but definitely because it dried up immediately. That was totally changed, effective immediately, and probably 08, 09, whatever it was. But I will say this. I tell people all the time, I say, listen, if you want me to really bring it all the way down to the core as to why we are not going to have a housing bubble, if I had to bet a paycheck on it, would be we are making good loans. And here's a great example. Certainly we had some stimulus come into the community over the last year, but we had a lot of people without jobs, and you did not see a lot of foreclosures. And not everybody got stimulus, and God knows the stimulus they did get was going to pay their mortgage for 6 months, right? Yeah. Some people did do forbearance and whatnot, but ultimately we are, besides a catastrophe where 30% of the world loses their jobs, yeah, we are making loans to people that can afford it now.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
My question is too was about when's the last time you wrote a loan or a bad loan, was more along the lines of when do you remember doing loans going, well, that was easy to get it done. You know what I mean? Like, unless the borrower had a great situation, great credit income, whatever. Loans are, I mean, we fight tooth and nail for these deals with underwriters. There's nobody getting a free pass, is my point. And it hasn't happened for a long time. And especially since COVID, I mean, it's been worse. I mean, I feel like it's harder to get the loans done. Like, try to be self-employed since COVID happened and try to get a mortgage loan and see how much they drag you through the ringer, right?
Yeah.
So it's not easier to get loans. And I think that was the basis of the previous, obviously, you know, when you talking about The Big Short, that's a great example of how that was all put together, where you had speculators coming into our world, buying up or creating funds based on bad mortgages. And the problem is they were using public money. They were using pensions. They were using 401ks. They were using people's money because they had to get a rate of return. And they found this avenue that they thought they could get a good rate of return on. And so what they were doing is they were betting on these loans, and then the bet failed, right? And that's ultimately what happened. Well, today, that's not the case, because number one, like you said, we are writing good loans. We're not writing bad loans. You don't just have to have a pulse and breathe on a mirror. It's 10 times worse than that, right? So if you have this loan, you have to be able to pay it, or we have to prove that and, you know, make it to where an underwriter will accept it. But the bigger issue, so we know the loan stuff's not there. So people say, well, what about the housing prices? Like, they're going through the roof. And at some point, you know, this value thing's got to pop. Well, my argument to that is, okay, you know, economics 101, Donnie. What impacts price? You have something called two things. You have
supply and demand.
Remember? Huh?
Supply and demand.
Supply and demand. Supply and demand is what drives pricing, right? Well, let's take the supply side. Okay. Well, right now, I think when I looked at some graph, and I wish I just thought of it. I wish I had it, but it was showing something like the number of homes built, and it was going from the 70s all the way to now. And it was like per average, it was something like, I don't remember the number, 25 million homes in certain areas built every year, you know, at a certain level. And then now, within the past 2 or 3 years, it's not even a third of that number. Okay. So the number of homes being built is even decreasing. And why is that? Well, part of it is number one, land is expensive. Okay. Because it's becoming more and more expensive to build properties. So builders have less of a profit margin built into each home, because number one, if they don't put a big enough footprint, you know, square footage size, 2,500, 3,000, these little mansions, as everybody likes to call them, if they don't build that house to that size, they're not going to have enough margin in there. Right. Now you tack on COVID, where everything's more expensive because the supply chain's getting, you know, messed up as we go through all this. So wood's more expensive, labor's more expensive. Everything costs more to create this, right? So the only way that you increase the supply is by building more homes. And we don't have, I mean, it's at a very slow pace as far as the build goes, right? Not to mention, the other reason that the supply part is becoming an issue is, and this actually started, in my opinion, 5 to 7 or 8 years ago, where investors, and now I got two different kinds of investors. I got investors like you and I, we're going to buy a rental property, right? And then there's another set of investors which are really throwing the market out of whack. Hedge funds, we talked about these guys the other day, right? But let's just go back 5 years before that. Investors, individual investors, were buying up properties in areas and holding them, right? Used to, you would have a certain amount of turnover. The first-time home buyer would sell their house and then go buy the next, you know, upgrade, right? Well, that house comes back into circulation in the market. So the next first-time home buyer can then go get that house for 120, 130, 150, whatever. Well, what happened is investors started buying and holding. So now these houses weren't coming back into circulation in the market. So that means less supply, which drives up the price. And this has been occurring for the last 5 to 7 years, in my opinion. And then this year, or the past 2 years, now you have what we talked about the other day, these large funds and big companies like BlackRock Financial, super-sized billion-dollar hedge funds that are coming in and buying up properties in bulk and keeping them, right? So the supply is not there. Now, people say, well, okay, I don't know if you saw this too, they just lifted I think there was a judge that ruled about lifting the eviction moratorium and all that, right? So they're like, well, what about all the foreclosures that are coming? Okay. Well, my answer to that is, are there going to be foreclosures? I'm sure that there are. Like, I absolutely think there will be. Are there going to be enough to offset the deficit in supply that we have? I don't think it's going to be anywhere close. I think you're, 2 to 3%, whatever, you're going to make a little bit of a hedge in that, but not very much. Like, it's not going to be enough to where all of a sudden there's these homes.
And on top of that, I mean, my wife, probably your wife, I know several of the wives or husbands do not want to buy a house that they immediately have to do work to, right? There's a whole world of people, and these foreclosures don't come out crystal clean, right? No. The 90% of them are not. So I get your point on, okay, that's not going to be enough to do it. But that's the whole deal on this. The real way to make more, I love using the musical chairs analogy, which I've got a great story about me on the Bozo Show and musical chairs for another day. But I love musical chairs. I'm really good at it, by the way. I'm one of the best musical chairs players ever. But if you think about it,
that's a bold statement, by the way. That's a bold statement.
No doubt. But if you think about it, ultimately, we need more chairs to sit in, because Sally and John and Bill and Sue and Joey, they all want to sell their house, but they absolutely know that they cannot find what they want. They know they can sell their house immediately. They've got multiple offers. People are going to be falling on themselves, because those that did choose to move into the market are have to be aggressive. I mean, that's one way to put it. Hard up, desperate. That's exactly where they are. So the only way to really fix this is build more houses. To your point, to build more houses, you got to charge a larger premium, because really the people in my area need $200,000 to $300,000 houses. If we had 100 of those brand new right now, they'd be gone, right?
Same thing.
In order to build those in this market, land's higher, lumber's higher. You got to order your windows 8 months before you need them. All of those things play in, and time is money, because if that builder is toting that spec house note for 2 more months, well, that's $3,000 more that they got to charge because of the interest, right? Yep. So when you look at the whole thing, it's a perfect storm for what I learned at the good old University of Tennessee, which is economics. By the way, my daughter had a bad grade in her first economics class, and I'm working on it. Okay. But in economics, you learn very simply what drives price, and this is a prime example of there's a labor shortage, there's a lumber shortage, the price of the commodities that you're buying, and land is in that. Land is a commodity, right? And those things are driving price up, where this $200,000 house that was 2,000 square foot house that was, I don't know, let's just call it 270 last year, is going to be 320 this year. I mean, it's just a derivative of all of those things. That does not mean that it's going to burst. In other words, the house that's down the road that was sold 10 years ago, it's probably not appreciating at that same value. When appraisers do their job, they've got guidelines they have to stay in, parameters. We always get on appraisers like, this guy's horrible, he can't do it. But they've got their guidelines, just like we've got underwriting guidelines. And those older houses are not going to promote or not going to receive that same appreciation. The problem is there's not enough of those older houses to go around. Now, last thing, and I'll let you jump back in and return back to me. The other thing is, it's a simple musical chairs analogy. I love it. I love musical chairs, but it's a simple musical chairs analogy. When you add those new homes, that opens up because the person moving from that old home to that new home is now selling their old home, and then Johnny can buy that one because he doesn't want a new house. That's just what he's looking for. So the 100 homes that move in now. We saw the meme yesterday I sent to you guys that the California governor has been named the Tennessee Realtor of the Year, right?
Yeah,
because obviously he's sending all his people. So out of those 100 houses, only 60 of those people are from here, wanting to stay here but upgrade. 40 of those people. So you have to understand there's a demand to get into Texas and to get into White House and Robertson County and in Middle Tennessee. But still, you gotta fulfill the needs for all those people. The people that are wanting to move up and over and around the corner and bigger house and a pool and a fence and whatever they need. And you also have to appease the people that are moving out of California and the Northeast and whatnot, wanting to come to this area.
That's right. Now, so then we go to the other side of that argument, which is the supply side, which we just talked about. Now we have the demand, right? So if we can't affect the supply, right, because we just had a 10-minute conversation about how the supply ain't changing anytime soon.
Yeah, right.
So now, okay, well, the only other thing that can affect it is the demand. If the demand fell off, right? Well, so we got a number of things impacting that. Number one is money is super, super cheap. Okay.
Hold on. I got a whole banner for this. Let me hurry up. All right, here we go.
There you go. So money is cheap. Rates are at all-time lows. They were recently in the twos. And oh, by the way, they're kind of creeping back in that direction pretty darn quick, right?
Yep.
So rates are super low, so money's cheap. But money's not just cheap for you and me, Donnie. Money's cheap for the billionaires that got massive hedge funds that they got to get a 4 to 6 return on, right?
Yep.
4 to 6% return. So now they looked around in 2006, 7, and 8, and they said, okay, this is where we're going to put our money to get this rate of return, because in order to pay the Minnesota police departments their pension for the next 30 years, I got to have a rate of return in order to make that happen, right? Well, that fell apart, and that's why people lost their pensions and 401ks. Well, now, or then they actually went to doing businesses. You saw private equity firms and capital or hedge funds investing into businesses up and down supply chains on any random bunch of industries, like especially oil and gas. You saw a lot of private equity money going into certain points of the supply chain on oil and gas to build companies, again, because they want a greater rate of return, because there's a lot of money in that market, right? Well, now they've also figured out, because of the appreciation in the housing market and because of the shortage of, these are weird, because of the shortage of supply and people not being able to purchase homes and it not catching up anytime soon. Let me ask you a question, Donnie. If you can't buy a house because you got a 630 credit score with an FHA loan and you don't have cash to put over the limit on offering over and above the purchase price, what did you just become? Not a homeowner.
A renter, yeah.
A renter, right? Yeah. You're a renter. So how many people in this country do you think own their cars these days, Donnie?
I mean, I don't know. I like to think it's a lot, but I know the leasing business is through the roof.
It's through the roof. It's more people leasing their cars than owning their cars, okay? How many people own content? Like, do you own, well, you do, but how many people do you think millennials and younger own their, their Prince album, own their Led Zeppelin album, own their, favorite copy of, Star Wars on video? Like, how many people own that? What do we do instead?
Yeah, we rent it at a higher price per time. Yeah,
exactly. We rent it. We pay for Netflix. We pay for Spotify. Everything's getting a monthly tap into your bank account every month. That's the way our society is headed. That's that tap. I got the IV. You're pulling money out of me every month.
I thought it was a heroin reference. I got lost there for a second.
All the kids these days, they go, sheesh. But anyway, nobody's paying attention that it gets that. So ultimately, we are in a society now where we are headed towards rental for everything, right? So why is housing any different? It's not, because these investors understand, and these large groups understand, that people don't have expendable cash that they can throw against. I mean, look, they got stimulus checks, but $3,600 over 8-month period is not going to get you a house. Okay.
No.
Yeah, it might get you through your bills, but you're not going to pay. You're not going to put a down payment on a house with that. So they understand that as well. So they see the rental market going this way, right? Not to mention the fact, and I think we've talked about this before too, 40% of the cash in circulation right now has been printed in the last 2 years. Okay. So now you have inflation that's also started to creep into every day-to-day society, especially when you look at the cost of lumber, you look at the cost of labor, all of this stuff is going up, right? So because of that, people cannot afford to buy homes. The only people that can afford to buy these houses, you have to be able to afford a $300,000 house and up. And there's many, many parts of the country where that's just not possible. So you're now a renter. Okay, well, they know if you're renting and rents are going like this and inflation is going like this, well, that rent now and that debt, even if you took out debt on that house this year, that's $200,000 or $300,000. You're paying, let's say you're paying $2,000 a month for that mortgage. Okay, well, in 2 years or 3 years, the rent on that same place is going to be $2,500, $2,700, $2,800 because the demand for rent is going to be there. The inflation of the cost of living is going to be there. But that debt, that $2,000 that you owe on that mortgage that you took out 5 years ago is exactly the same. And it hasn't changed. So as an investment company, I get a massive rate of return on my money in that environment, in that situation. So because of investment companies, because of cheap money, because of everybody trying to find another place to move out of states and go to different places, okay, the demand is not going to change. It is not going, unless rates just spike through the roof, right? Which, is that possible? It's possible. Anything's possible, right? Is it likely? No. Do you know why it's not likely? Because we've got freaking $200 trillion worth of debt. And if we raise interest rates, the Fed, now we're paying twice that to service the debt.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, from my standpoint and watching 21 years of politics, politicians work the system, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And the main thing I've learned is the easiest way to sell yourself as being an awesome politician is say, look, we're taking care of the people. We're taking care of you, right? We're keeping the rates low. Inflation's in check and whatnot. Can you not hear me?
There we go. You're good now.
Okay. Inflation's in check. We're keeping rates low. All of that. That is a easy sale that goes all the way directly to the person voting's pocketbook.
Yep.
From my standpoint, certainly, I'm not saying rates are never going to go up above 6 or 7%. They might, but the politicians and the people in charge are going to do everything possible because they want that job next time when y'all show up to vote. So I think that's a huge point that, while we complain about the black hole, which is the politics and all that goes on in Washington, that is one positive, is that they are hell bent, for lack of better words, to keep rates low. And unfortunately, it's probably self-serving to get themselves voted back in next time.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what it is. And that's why you're not going to see, at least, again, in my opinion, in this moron's opinion, you're not going to see a dramatic shift in interest rates because it's not in the best interest of anybody. Now, let me be very clear, okay? Do I think that's the right thing to do? And do I think that we're headed in a positive direction and this is all good? No, I do not, okay? I do think that higher interest rates are better because it makes for a healthier market. If I can have a rate of return on my investment because interest and borrowing money is a little bit more expensive and there's less money flowing around, I think ultimately long-term that's a better plan. However, the powers that be don't think 10 or 15 years in the future. They think about the next 2-year election cycle, and I need to get my butt back into office because I can't get off the teat of the lobbyists and the money that's coming my way. And
I don't know how to do it any other way than people just handing me money based on how I vote. I'm sorry I said that, but that is so true.
That's true. Well, and if you look at, this is something for another day too, but I saw something the other day that showed, and this is Democrats and Republicans.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt about it.
When you look at the gain of their wealth while they're in office. And I don't mean, by the way, I'm not talking about like payouts and all this stuff. This is simple, easy, like, oh yeah, where you see like Nancy Pelosi, right? She bought some crazy amount of Microsoft stock right before the federal government and Microsoft announced a collaboration between the two of them. So her stock went through the roof, right? And then you had, I can't remember, that was like the Loeffler guy or chick, and then some other dude that was a Senate Republican. They got into a bunch of hot water because right before COVID happened, they bought a bunch of like Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson and all this stuff before it was announced that COVID was like a real problem, because they had closed door meetings where they knew stuff was going on. So they're privy to information that you and I are not privy to well before we are, right? So it's always in their best interest to keep that information tight and keep it close. So that's why I say, look, I'm not saying that low rates and all this stuff is great. We all should be excited, because I don't know, man. I don't know that this is the right way to be going. But does that change what it is? No. We're still here. This is where we're at. So that's why I say there is not going to be, at least anywhere in the near future that I can see, where the current market situation is going to have any kind of dramatic shift when it comes to housing and interest rates, because it's just not going to. So if that doesn't change, then the demand for this, you know, the real estate, for land, for all this is not going to decrease. It's going to keep going up. It's that old, I say it all the time, it's the old Mark Twain quote, right? Buy real estate, they're not making any more of it. Okay. Right. Because it's not a renewable asset, or I should say, it's not an asset that keeps growing. You get a finite amount of real estate on the planet Earth, and that's all there is. So I don't think that that's going to change anytime soon. I don't think that we're going to have any massive shift. So when people ask you every day, Donnie, is now a good time to buy? What's your response to that question?
Probably the first thing I say is, and then when they're asking, is now a time to buy, they're relating that to are we about to have a bubble burst? Right. And the first thing I start with every single time is, we are making good loans. We are not doing the things that we did and putting people in adjustable rate mortgages that shouldn't be. I'm not saying adjustable rate mortgages are bad. I'm saying that not everybody can stomach that, or should have that, or they don't have a specific time that they're for sure going to be out of their house. Right. So that's where I start. The other side of it is, I bet you if you would have asked somebody 10 months ago and now, and they didn't buy a house then and they bought a house now, they should have bought it 10 months ago. That's exactly what they would say. So here you are in the now. We can't go backwards. Now's the time to buy. I mean, you can't get in too much trouble, because you're going to get a 3% interest rate, right? Talk to your parents or grandma about, grandma probably had one at 15, 14, 16% at some point. And that same $300,000 house that you qualify now would have been at 16%. It would have been 180,000, you know, that much different.
Yeah. And you're just not going to, and this is something that helps some of our realtor partners as well, because here's the weird thing about our industry, right? Our real estate industry as a whole is, and I say this all the time, is that when people are buying homes, how many times in the average human's life are they going to buy and sell a house, Donnie?
4.
Right. 3, 4, 5 times in their life. That's it. It's very rare. So every time you get into the market to buy or sell a house, you're showing up as a new person that has no idea what's happening, right? And you and I and our realtor partners and title companies, we know because we're involved in it on a day-to-day basis. But it's a hard pill to swallow whenever I'm a new buyer and I walk in and my agent goes, look, I know this house is listed for $250, but we're going to have to offer $280 to get it. And the person goes, wait a minute, sounds like to me you're just trying to jack up my price so you can make more money, right? Yeah. And that's not what it is. Realtors want you to get the contract, because they don't make any money unless you get the contract. So,
but Mike, that is a jagged little pill. Sorry.
It is. It absolutely is. It's a hard thing for someone to go, wait a minute, it doesn't sound like you're looking out for me. It sounds like you're trying to get the highest price point. And the reality is no. What they're trying to do is get a contract so you can buy a house, because that's the only way they get paid. And they don't
want to write 18 different contracts, because finally on that 18th one, you'll say, okay, oh, now I get it. Okay, we need to offer more. Got it. They're trying to go speed through all those other 17 contracts.
Right. And the other part of this is it's incumbent on you and I as lenders, when we talk, and other lenders out there, when we talk to the clients, we have to also help our realtor partners by explaining this from our point of view as well, because it's the same message, but you've got to hear it from multiple sources sometimes before it really starts to sink in. And when I talk to somebody and they go, look, I'm a 600 borrower, I got to do an FHA loan, I've got down payment assistance, and I don't have any extra cash. Okay, well, I would love to be like, man, this is going to be great. You're gonna get you a new home. It's going to be awesome. But I can't. I got to be like, look, here's the deal. Can you buy a house? Absolutely, you can. Okay, can you buy the house that you want? Probably not. Okay, are you going to be the number one offer that shows up when 20 other offers show up? No, you're not. Is this going to take a while? Probably. Okay. Is there ever a circumstance where the stars align and everything works out perfectly because so-and-so is selling their house and you got it in line? Of course that can happen. That means that you don't stop trying, but you have to understand that it's not just a slam dunk. You're not just going to walk in and go, it's me. I'm going to buy this house. You know me. Come on. Sell the house to me. You know, it just doesn't work. And so it's incumbent on us with our realtor partners to help them by explaining this stuff to the borrower so they understand that, look, I'm not saying you can't get a house. You qualify. You do. Based on the rules, you fit. I'm just telling you it's going to be an uphill battle, and you've got to be ready for that to set the expectations properly so everybody's not frustrated.
All right. So to sum up, Mike and I both believe that we are not headed for a bubble burst, right? Now, is there some pain along the way? Just what Mike was talking about. It's hard to get a house. Do we need more houses to sell? Abso-freaking-lutely. Is lumber and labor and land prices hindering that? Yes, but that also means that when you sell your house, people forget about, when they're saying, God, these prices are so high, right? You're selling your house at a premium gold, platinum plated market, right? So it's like here, if we're in a crappy housing market, you don't get hardly anything for your house, but it's easy to buy another house. Here we are in the middle market. Here we are in the top market. It's not one of those deals where you can sell your house at retail and buy one at wholesale. That never happens. You buy and sell at wholesale. You buy and sell at retail. However you want to look at it, the market is what it is. So with that being said, we do not think it is. Are we wrong sometimes? Yeah. I mean,
most of the time. Most
of the time. But for all the indicators, right? And that's what Mike and I do every single day. We got a couple of people specifically that we watch every single day that kind of guides us and watch the same numbers we're watching. All the indicators say, keep going, ultimately. So,
and it's not going to get cheaper. And that's the biggest message is like, look, there isn't something where, I'll just take a break and I'll come back in the wintertime and it'll be cheaper. No.
Wintertime, it'll be much better.
There'll be less houses. There'll be less people moving. It'll be more expensive. So there isn't right now a bad time to buy, because, and this will lead maybe into our Bitcoin discussion, but if you're sitting today and the price is $150,000 or $300,000, right, on a particular home, okay, and then I were be able to reach into the future and tell you that houses are going to be selling in that same neighborhood for $500,000, would $300,000 sound unrealistic and expensive? No, it doesn't. But that's where it's going. So that's why we say it's not a bad time to buy. Is it expensive compared to what you knew previously? 100%. But there are a million reasons why. We just went through them all. So it's not changing.
And by the way, if we could go back to the future, we would buy a lot of Bitcoin. I would buy a lot of Purell stock, those kind of things. But ultimately, and I think, Mike, we're already to 40 minutes, and we've got 4 people on here. So I think we're going to table Bitcoin till next time.
Sounds good.
So we'll save that slide. But I do want to talk about this for a second. So if you have made it this long in the video, you are interested in this topic. Do me a favor. If you've watched it already, watch it again. If you have never watched it, it's a must-see tonight. Like tonight, you need, Mike, if they've made it this far, on a scale from 1 to 10, how much do they need to see this movie?
This movie's awesome, and it's not even, I don't think you have to be in the mortgage business to understand it, because Well, here's the problem with this movie is it'll piss you off. It's gonna make you
That's
mad.
exactly right. Because, and not Mike and I, not at our level, but the big investors or whatnot, we're doing some crazy stuff. But the really cool thing about this movie, and I'll never forget, there's a scene. This is not why I remember it, but it was a girl in a bathtub. I don't think there's any nudity in the whole thing, but there's a scene in there and she's kind of talking through some stuff. And what she does, it's kind of like The Office, and it's ironic that Steve Carell's in this, but they're sitting there and they're talking like here. Hold on, I got to make sure. So they're talking and movies going on, and they stop and they go, okay, so what I meant by that is this was happening and that was happening. It's really, they do a good job, very similar to how they do in The Office and some of these other movies that go like that. They do a good job. If it gets complex to the average layman, right, that's not in the mortgage business, they stop and say, here's what I meant by that. So you're going to get the meat and the real analogy of what's going on throughout the whole process, because it'll get mind blowing. And like Mike said, you'll probably be pissed off.
Yeah,
I mean, 100%.
Especially at the people running your lives from up there at Capitol Hill. They're really going to upset you. So I mean, this is why we're in the world. This is why there's no trust for the government. This is why there's very little trust for the people making decisions on our behalf on all sides, because we're starting to understand that they're not on your side. Regardless of what they tell you, they are not on your side. They're on their side. They're on the side of power and money. And so whatever team you're on, don't give yourself these grand illusions that those guys are fighting for you, because they're not.
I'm gonna contradict that a little bit. I'm gonna say it this way: there are very few politicians that are objective, right? They're looking at the big picture and really have the intent of helping the entity, right? The entity being the federal government, the state government, the local government, the county government, whatnot. Don Eaton is a prime example of someone that he's fine. He doesn't need any hand-me-outs. I mean, he's just a county guy, right? Whatever. But we need more politicians that truly have the best interest of the entity, right? The firm, whatever you want to call it, and are objective and not just, hey, it's my way or the highway kind of deal. But you're exactly right, Mike, except for I would just say it like there are very few that have that intent.
Well, the difference is that when you look at the local level, right, your county, even your state to some extent, although I think it starts getting real murky even at the state level. But when you look city, county, municipalities, those people, they don't make any money. They're not getting any kind of, anything other than maybe they get a free dinner at the Denny's down the street or something like that, right? So those people are in it because they care, because they're giving their time to get involved in whatever. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the ones that have been doing it for 50 years, and their whole career is based off of being in power and being in control and what comes with that. Okay. Right. They're so far separated from reality for you and I and what our day-to-day lives are and what the normal U.S. Citizens' day-to-day life is. They have no idea what we go through every day because they're so far removed. They're living in a different dimension. And listen, we put them in office, so it's our fault. So we have to make sure that we know who's on your side and who's not. And it doesn't matter what team they're on. Are they a good human? And are they trying to do what's right for everybody? Or are they trying to line their pockets and make you look over here so you don't check over there?
And we want to go on record that we're not talking about red or blue or left or right. We're talking about the whole thing. All of the whole thing. No,
all of it. So.
All right. Well, I think we've done enough damage for this podcast, show, episode, whatever you want to call it. Be good humans. I mean, Mike says it every time. Make sure when you go into this weekend that you take the time to make it a great weekend. Like, it's not up to Mike and I whether or not you have a great weekend. It's totally up to you. And your circumstances may suck this weekend, but freaking grab your boot straps and get up and freaking have a darn good one. Donnie said it's okay for you to take care of yourself this weekend.
It's okay. Yeah, that's right. You're going to, right? You're about to go get your nice little rubby rub on the shoulders.
We've had a stressful time here at the office, so we take time every now and then to take time for ourselves. So the whole team's been up there while I've been in this podcast getting a chair massage. Donna actually came out before I was this, and I asked her a question, and she just went, blah, blah. I'm like, hey, can you speak? Like, no, not yet. Give me a minute. Just words were not even coming out. But we've done some pretty cool stuff. We've done IVs. The girls had me got a spray tan. This girl came in and set up this booth. We did a spray tan in here. That was super awkward and weird.
Did you have your Speedo on while they're spraying?
Hey, listen. It was, it's just different. I'm so country boy, don't do spray tans very much. The worst part about that is you've got freaking white sheets in your bed, and they're just muddy brown like the next morning. Like, okay, well, this was horrible.
I don't know anything about that.
But Mike, do you do that kind of stuff for your team if they're watching right now? What do you think?
Yeah, we go to dinner. We do our thing. I'm probably not as good of a rewarding boss as you are. I probably need to be better at it. So I'm glad that you set a proper example for me, so I have something to achieve towards. So yeah.
One that went over well was IVs, those hydration stations. Just have somebody come in, pop a bunch of, as you say, pop some juice in there, get livened up. We've done nails and feet. Oh God, sorry. Before we go, those of you that are watching, a podiatrist, an actual foot massage by a professional foot person, and she had tuning forks and hot rocks and all kinds of stuff. She put you in a seat, put these headphones on, you just sit back and she rubbed your feet. She finally touched my leg when it was over, and I lifted up and slobber was just running down my face. Like I had full on, went to sleep. It was the best. So that's a top of the line one there.
Nice. All right, I'll make note of that one.
Enough about slobber and whatnot. But yeah, tune in next week. We're going to talk about Bitcoin at some point, and how you can get involved. How you can get involved and do that. Hey, make it a great weekend.
Be good humans.
See ya. Oh, see it.